Good morning, guys, and welcome to Storyteller's Corner for Tuesday, the 7th of July. And welcome. Now we're going back to our Victorian scandal in London. So, this is chapter 32. The house closes ranks. For one suspended moment after Hawthorne's announcement, no one in the drawing room seemed capable of movement. A reporter at the gate requested a statement. The words hung in the air with menace, all of their own. Not because journalism was unusual in London, newspapers often made a profession of turning private misfortunes into public entertainment, but because the presence of one at Whitmore House meant something had shifted irreversibly. Rumours had become pursuit, speculation had become appetite. Somewhere beyond the iron gates a stranger stood ready to gather what fragments he could and carry them into print by morning. Caroline felt the room around her alter. The earlier tension, so personal, so intimate in its pain, gave way to something broader and colder. This was no longer only about family disapproval or the impossible tenderness of Thomas standing before her uncle and speaking plainly of love. It was now about strategy, containment, survival, about whether Whitmore House would band or fight. Lord Rimborne was the first to recover. "Who is he?" asked sharply. Hawthorne stepped farther into the room, closing the door carefully behind him as if a small act might keep outside world at bay. He gave the name Mr. Daniel Mercer, my lord, from the London Evening Chronicle. Lord Ashford swore under his breath. Her aunt flinched at the sound, though under the circumstances no one thought to rebuke him. Lord Wren's expression sharpened at once. The Chronicle? That's not encouraging. Lord Rimborne turned towards him. "You know it?" "Well, enough to distrust it." When Wren straightened from the bookcase, all traces of irony gone now. "Mercer is one of the most persistent men. If he has come in person, he might be believed he can leave with something stronger than gossip." Caroline's stomach tightened. How would he even know Thomas's name?" she asked. No one answered immediately, and because no one answered, the silence itself became its own dreadful response. Someone had spoken. Someone had guessed correctly and passed it on, or someone in town had seen too much, or one of the papers had simply begun pulling all threads until they found one worth naming. However it happened, the result was the same. The secrecy was ending. Lord Wimborne's jaw hardened. "Hawthorne, has the man been admitted?" "No, my lord. I told the gatekeeper he must remain outside until you decide how to proceed." "Good." He began pacing at once, the force of his thoughts visibly gathering speed. "No servant is to speak to him. No one. If he attempts to question the staff, he is to be turned away immediately." "Yes, my lord." "And are there any others? Any other reporters?" "Hawthorne is others, sir?" "Other reporters, other callers, curious friends suddenly struck my concern for my niece's welfare." A muscle moved in his cheek. "The gates remain closed unless I say otherwise." Hawthorne bowed. At once he turned to leave. "Wait." Lord Rimborne's voice stopped at the door. "If Mercer asks again for a statement, tell him Whitmore House does not answer allegations shouted through iron bars." A flicker, just the faintest flicker, passed through Hawthorne's face. Approval, perhaps, or grim satisfaction. "Yes, my lord." He withdrew, and the door shut behind him. And at once the room seemed to draw on itself, all of them left with the truth of what was coming. Lord Ashford was the first to speak. "This is exactly what I feared." He ran a hand through his hair, abandoning for once the polished reserve that usually made him seem almost immovably composed. The moment the press begins using names, it ceases to be manageable. It becomes spectacle. "Was it manageable before?" Caroline asked quietly. Ashford turned to her, and for a moment his expression softened. "No," he admitted, "but there are degrees of disaster." Lord Wren made a low sound that might have been agreement. Her uncle stopped pacing and looking directly at Caroline. "You should go upstairs." The words came so abruptly that she almost failed to understand them. "What?" "You heard me. His tone was not unkind, but it was firm with instinctive protection. "You should not be here while we decide how to handle this." Caroline rose slowly from the settee. "With respect, uncle, I think I should be exactly here." He stared at her. "This is not a discussion for you." "No?" Her voice remained calm, though her pulse began to pound again. "A reporter is at the gate because my name is being discussed. In a drawing-room, a newspaper. Thomas has just stood there in a room and spoken honestly before all of us, and now, at the very moment it becomes most dangerous, I am to be sent away." Her uncle exhaled sharply. "Caroline." "No." The word surprised even him, but once spoken it steadied her. "I am tired of being treated as if a scandal is something happening to me while everyone else decides what version of my life may be tolerated." Her aunt closed her eyes briefly, perhaps in prayer, perhaps in surrender. Lord Wren, meanwhile, looked up though he would have liked to applaud, and was restraining himself for reasons of self-preservation. Lord Wimborne rubbed a hand over his face. "I'm not trying to silence you. It feels very much like it," she said. "I'm trying to spare you." Caroline's expression changed, not in anger, in something sadder. "I know." She took a breath. "But if this house is going to close ranks around me, then I need to know whether it is closing ranks around the truth or around a lie." That landed harder than she intended. Her uncle went still. Across the room, Thomas had not moved since Hawthorne left, but Caroline felt his attention sharpen, as if the whole room had narrowed to her voice. Lord Wimborne looked at her for a very long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he gave a short nod. "Very well." The room seemed to shift. "You may stay." Caroline held his gaze. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet. I have not decided whether this is wisdom or fatigue." At that, her own astonishment, Caroline almost smiled. Her uncle turned towards the others. "We have three choices as I see it." Lord Ashford straightened slightly. Wren folded his arms. Even Thomas seemed to draw himself more firmly into the conversation, though he remained silent. "We deny everything," Lord Wimborne said. "We state that the rumours are malicious nonsense, and that Mr. Reed is and always been merely an employee of this household, and that any implication otherwise is fabrication." Ashford nodded at once. "That would be the conventional course." "It would also be a lie," Caroline said. Ashford looked pained. "Yes, then I will not do it." Lord Wimborne's gaze flickered to her. "This is not just solely your decision." "No," she said, "but this is partly mine, and I will not stand by while Thomas is reduced to some convenient fiction for my comfort." At the edge of the room, Thomas's expression tightened with something that might have been gratitude and pain in equal measures. "Second," Lord Wimborne continued, as though he had not heard the interruption, though everyone knew he had. "We say nothing, no denial, no admission. We refuse comment and wait to see whether the story burns itself out." Wren let out a breath. "It will not." Her uncle looked at him sharply. "You sound very certain." "I am." Wren pushed away from the bookcase and moved towards the hearth. Silence works only when the scandal lacks detail. Once a reporter has named and believes that the family is frightened, he does not retreat. He returns with more questions, more insinuations, perhaps with photographs of the house, interview with tradesmen, half-truth from grooms, footmen and coachmen, God knows what else. Her aunt went visibly pale. Wren continued more gently, though no less bluntly. "If the Chronicle has scented blood, it will not politely lose interest." Ashford swore again, softer this time. "And the third choice?" Caroline asked. Lord Wimborne looked at her. The firelight threw a deep shadow across his face, making him look every inch the patriarch of an old family brought unwillingly to a new kind of war. "The third," he said slowly, "is that we get ahead of it." No one spoke. "We issue our own statement, brief, controlled, enough truth to deny them the pleasure of invention, but not so much that we hand society a spectacle." Caroline's heart footed. Her aunt stared at him. "You cannot mean—" "I do not know yet what I mean," he snapped, then moderate in his tone. "Only thing I have considered every available weapon. I would be grateful if no one looked so shocked when I do it." Lord Wren's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "It may be the least disastrous option." Lord Ashford turned to him. You cannot be serious. I am perfectly serious. Wren's face fully now. Wren faced him fully now. If the papers are about to print Thomas's name anyway, then the question is whether they do so as scavengers picking over a secret, or as men reacted to a statement the family has also framed. Framed how? Ashford demanded. As a romantic inconvenience? As a modern fairy tale? Good God, Alistair. As a private matter, Wren shot back, involving Lady Caroline and a member of her household, with no further comment to be given. Ashford laughed harshly. You think society will hear private matters and graciously avert its eyes? No, Wren said. I think society will do what it always does. Sniff around the edges like a pack of boarhounds, but a clean statement robs them of the advantage. The ability to claim the family is hiding something shameful. Kara looked at him carefully. You think honesty would protect us? Wren's expression softened by a fraction. No, I think it might prevent a worse kind of damage. Until that moment, Thomas had remained silent. Now he spoke. If I may. Every eye turned to him. Lord Wimborne gave him a curt nod. Thomas drew a breath. With respect, my lord, any statement that asks Lady Caroline to endure more scrutiny because of me is one I would struggle to accept. Caroline turned towards him at once. Thomas. He kept his gaze on her uncle. The scandal is already unfair to her. If there is a way to contain it by denying my part in it, then perhaps this is a better course. No, Caroline said sharply. He looked at her then. There was no argument in his face, only that infuriating, self-sacrificing steadiness she had come to know all too well. Caroline, no. She crossed the room before she had fully decided to do it, stopping just short of him. You do not get to decide that the best way to protect me is by pretending I imagined you. His expression changed just slightly. I was not suggesting that. You were. She lowered her voice, though not enough to hide the force of it. You are offering yourself up to be erased because you think this is noble. A muscle moved in his jaw. If it spares you, it will not spare me. The room had gone silent again, but Caroline barely noticed. She could feel her aunt watching, Ashford staring, and Wren observing all of it with a piercing stillness of his, and her uncle saying nothing because he wanted, perhaps needed to hear how this part would unfold. If they print a lie, Caroline said, then I must live inside that lie. I must smile through it and dine dinners and church and drawing rooms with everyone pretend they do not know better. I must watch you become some sordid rumour to be denied whenever convenient. Her voice shook now, and not from uncertainty but from fury. I will not do it. Thomas looked at her for a long moment. Something vulnerable flickered beneath the control in his face. You would choose the harder road? Yes. Even knowing what it may cost? Yes. The answers came without hesitation. Her eyes closed briefly, as though there was pain in hearing it and relief too. When he opened them again, he bowed his head once. Then I will not argue. Her uncle let out a breath that sounded suspiciously like the end of patience. Wonderful, he muttered. At least one of the impossible children in this room has stopped speaking. To Caroline's astonishment, Lord Wren laughed. Even her aunt gave a watery little smile before catching herself. Lord Wimborne shot them all a look of profound irritation. This is not amusing. No, Wren said, still recovering a bit. Your phrasing was excellent. Do be quiet, Alistair. As you wish. He did not look remotely sorry. The laughter, small and strained through it, broke, potentially just enough of a room to breathe again. Lord Wimborne moved to the desk near the window and braced both hands upon it, staring down at the blotter as though the polished wood might offer a wisdom. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. It was no longer the voice of a scandalized uncle. It was the voice of a man making calculations under pressure. Very well, we proceed as the story will appear by morning, whether we like it or not. Ashford frowned. You are truly considering a statement? I'm considering survival. He straightened and looked towards Hawthorne's empty place by the door, then back to the room. If we say nothing, and Mercer prints Thomas's name, we spend the next week looking as though we were caught unprepared. If we deny it, if we deny this challenge, we look deceitful. If we admit enough to frame it ourselves. He paused. We may at least choose for language. Lord Ashford still looked unconvinced, but he did not interrupt. Caroline felt the shape of a moment shifting again, not towards safety, but towards action. What would the statement say? Her aunt asked softly. The question hung there. No one answered immediately. Then Lord Wren said something restrained, something infuriating, dignified. Her uncle turned to him with visible suspicion. That sounds expensive. It usually is. Lord Wimborne ignored him and looked at Caroline, then at Thomas, finally back to the room. It says, he began slowly, that recent speculation concerning Lady Caroline Wimborne has become intrusive and unacceptable, that Mr. Thomas Reed has long been there as an employee of the household and remains a respected member of it. Thomas went very still, and Caroline's heart tightened. Her uncle continued. Each phrase sounded as though he was chiselling it unwillingly from a stone. It says that the family will not comment on private personal matters beyond confirming that no impropriety has taken place under this roof. Ashford let out a sharp breath. Can we say that? Lord Wimborne looked at him levelly. Yes. No one missed the distinction. Impropriety was not the same thing as nothing happened. It was the line drawn carefully enough to protect the household without requiring an outright lie. Wren particularly noticed at once. Very good, he murmured. Do not sound pleased, Lord Wimborne said. I can't help admiring a well-constructed sentence. Caroline was oddly listening to Wren. She was looking at her uncle. And the man who only an hour earlier had still seemed to be struggling with the fact of Thomas as a suitor at all, and who now, trying his own stern and imperfect way to build a wall between his niece and the worst of London. Uncle, he looked at her, and for the first time he seen the hardness in his expression had eased. Do not mistake me, he said quietly. I am not embracing this situation. I am simply unwilling to have strangers dictate it for me. Something in Caroline's chest ached at the words, because that, she realised, was not as close to standing with her as she yet knew how to come. And what of me? Thomas asked. The room towards him again, turned towards Thomas. His face was composed, but Caroline knew him well enough to hear the strain beneath the question. If this statement is issued, my lord, then I become visible, not merely within the house, everywhere. Lord Wimborne's gaze held his. Yes. Then I must ask plainly. He clasped his hands behind his back again, as though to keep from betraying him. Will I remain in your employ because you believe it right, or because dismissing me now would look like guilt? The question landed like a challenge, though it was asked with perfect respect. Her aunt drew a breath. Ashford looked faintly alarmed. Wren looked impressed all over again, and Caroline nearly stopped breathing, because Thomas had done it again. He had walked directly into the heart of the matter and refused to let anyone hide behind convenience. Lord Wimborne stared at him for a long time, then he said, Both, perhaps. Thomas did not move. Her uncle went on, I would be lying if I claimed public appearance played no role. It does. I am not so noble as that. A flicker of reluctance honestly crossed his face. But I am also not dismissing you to make society comfortable. The room stilled. Lord Wimborne's voice hardened. If you leave this house, it will not because I have entered London with satisfaction of believing rank alone can dictate honour. Thomas looked at him. Something unreadable passed between them. Respect, perhaps, or the beginning of it. At last Thomas bowed his head. Thank you, my lord. A fresh knock at the door sounded. Everyone startled. When Hawthorne re-entered, he looked grim but composed. My lord, the reporters remain at the gate. Of course he does, Lord Wimborne muttered. Hawthorne continued. He has now left a card and a note saying he intends to remain in the village tonight in case the family reconsider its silence. Wren swore softly this time. Lord Ashford swore less softly. Her aunt looked ready to lie down. Bring me the note, Lord Wimborne said. Hawthorne crossed the room and placed the folded sheet into his hand. The room waited as he read. Caroline watched the colour leave his face by degrees. Uncle? He lowered the note slowly. It seems Mr. Mercer has more than a name. A chill moved through her. What do you mean? Lord Wimborne looked at Thomas first, then at Caroline, and only then did he answer. He claims to have witnesses. No one spoke. No one seemed able. A witness to what? Ashford asked at last, though his voice sounded strange and distant. Lord Wimborne's expression was not like stone. To see Lady Caroline and Mr. Reed together alone in the garden. Caroline felt the blood drain from her face. The garden, the winter night beneath the oak, or perhaps the terrace, the shadowed path, or one of the dozens of moments they had fought in and enough to survive. She did not know which was worse, that someone had seen, or they should not know when. Thomas had gone completely still, not frozen with fear, with calculation. Caroline recognised at once the terrible swift working of his mind as he measured consequences, escape, damage, blame. He looked as though he might already be trying to decide how to take the whole thing upon himself. She wanted to stop him before it began. Lord Wimborne folded the note with a terrifying care. Then he looked at the room and said with a calm so cold it frightened everyone present, "No one leaves this house tonight." The words settled over them like a lock turning in a door. No one writes letters, no one speaks to visitors, no one sends messages through servants or receives them. His gaze moved from Ashford to Caroline, from Caroline to Thomas, from Thomas to Wren. If Mercer has a witness, then by morning we may be facing not gossip but accusations dressed as evidence. Until I know who has been spoken, and what precisely they claim to have seen, this family does nothing without my knowledge. Wren nodded at once. A sensible precaution. Ashford said, "Do you think someone may try to sell the story of it elsewhere?" "I think," Lord Wimborne said grimly, "that London has discovered the scent of blood, and I am not foolish enough to assume one reporter is at the end of it." Caroline looked at Thomas. He met her gaze only briefly, just long enough for her to see the same thought reflected theirs. The walls of Whitmore House were closing, not against them, but around them, and by dawn they might all discover that the scandal has already escaped beyond saving. Wow. So there we go, guys. That is chapter 32. Join me tomorrow for chapter 33, The Witness in the Dark. Someone has seen them canoodling. Someone has seen them. There's a witness, and that's bad news for Whitmore House. So there we go, guys. But we've got more other things before we get to Duty and Desire, chapter 33, The Witness in the Dark, because we're going off to the little village of Willowmere tonight for chapter 6, The Bell at Dusk. So let's see what the bells are all about, and let's see if we can find out who the witness is. It's turned into a detective case, I think, this Duty and Desire. Inspector Davies on the case, detective. So there you go, guys. Anyway, guys, there's a long one. Hope you enjoyed that. Take care now and have a lovely day. Bye bye now. Thank you for joining me in Storytellers Corner. Bye bye.